Hello, everyone out there in Facebook world and podcast world. We're live on Facebook and recording this for the podcast. I'm Tersh, host of Service Business Mastery Podcast. And today we have BlueOn HVAC and Mike Eriksen with BlueOn to speak with us about not only their refrigerant that replaces R22, and I'm going to try my hardest to not say drop in this entire conversation because it's not a drop in for R22, it's a replacement. As we were talking earlier, there are going to be people that are going to drop this in on top of R22, and let's get this out in the air up front. It's not a drop in, or it's a replacement. So make sure you're following all of their policies and procedures and everything. Integrity first, service infra, core value, integrity first. Don't just dump it in on top of R22. But super excited to talk with Mike because this isn't just a conversation about R22 and getting rid of it and it not being able to be manufactured anymore in 2020, which 2020, let's be real, getting rid of R22 is probably the least of our concerns this year. But it's there's a lot of houses out there that have, especially vacation houses that didn't have a lot of traffic around here, that still have R22 systems in them, and sometimes they might just have a minor leak and they just need refrigerant replaced instead of it being a major component replacement and justifying replacing a system. And when I speak about this, BlueOn does a lot with, and we'll get into this more in detail too, but BlueOn does a lot with the commercial and industrial type stuff too. But a lot of the people that listen to this, we're going to do a lot of residential and light commercial. So you may have that rooftop package unit that needs refrigerant, and it's an R22 system, and they just don't want to replace the whole system. And so BlueOn has that solution, but that's all cool, and that's really awesome and interesting. But what I really want to talk about is the app and everything that app has to offer, which is more than just a basic forum with questions and answers, which I think is really cool. So with that being said, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. We're stoked to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about BlueOn, how long y'all been around, and what it is you actually offer.
Yeah, it always helps to give a little bit of context. So 2011 started with an idea. Our CEO, founder, Peter Capiciati, he came from the corporate real estate world and knew about the R22 phase out and knew of the other options that were out there and didn't like them. And basically the idea was, well, why can't we make something that is equal or better than R22 and solves this looming problem coming down the line? So fast forward 5-6 years of thousands of empirical tests, software tests, on-site tests, and sometimes intentionally blowing stuff up to learn what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Going through EPA approval, which is its own fun story, and being fully EPA and fully ASHRAE approved, and then coming to the market with a solid product. And that's where the app was born, was how do we reach all these contractors with what we've learned. Mm-hmm. And over the last 6-7 years, between 2011 and 2017. And that's where the app came in, where there's now 30,000 R22 manuals loaded in there, original unit specs to have at your fingertips, along with this green light, yellow light, red light system. That's, these ones are good to go. Yellow light one means call us, and red light one, is run away. Blends don't work, unless you just want to have fun in your backyard and watch something go boom.
Yeah.
So, and it involved beyond that was, not just write down what we know and write down what we learned. It was, let's give them more tools. So we have subcool and superheat calculators, airflow calculators, diagnostic tools like a nitrogen pressure test to help figure out, do I have a leak or is there something else going on, as well as the 24/7 tech support that like I call it the big red easy button on the app. You press the red button and within 2 minutes real veteran from the field, answers the phone, says, "How you doing, brother or sister? What do you need? What are you looking at? Let's get into it right now, and talk about what's going on."
So
So
that's really cool. That part of it is really awesome to me because it's like it you're doing more than just providing a product and saying, "Hey, come purchase this product and put it in," and then because there's a lot of times where I remember when other replacement refrigerants, we're going to do air quotes, replacement refrigerants were out for 22, and it, all I heard was rule of thumb. Well, if 22 is going to be at 70 psi, this one's going to be at around 50 psi or something like that. And then there was very little actual support provided with that. So I think that's really
and
awesome.
the funny thing there, so I mean, a lot of those MO99, U22, whatever they were,
Hmm.
designed by the large companies with the support of the large manufacturers to follow the pressures of the original equipment, you know. And we came at it from a completely different angle. We were like, we want to make a better refrigerant. That was the lofty goal we set, and stumbled on all these other things. So we actually operate at lower pressures, which
Sure.
is a huge reason why we didn't want to just hand the jug to someone and say go have fun.
Yeah.
We want, hey, by the way, when you're doing this, it's a little bit different. So here's all the tools to do that while you're out there. And so I mean, as a result, we average 15% energy savings. The larger the unit, the better those can get. We same or better capacity as R22,
Hmm.
and we never require an oil change, which was the always question mark with some of the other options out there.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are missable, but not if the line set's this long,
Right.
or all these if that then this scenarios where it's like, okay, I don't even want to think about it. We're just gonna say no, you need a new unit and move on.
Exactly. That's the exact scenario that we ran into. It was like, can I, as a contractor, stand behind a product that I don't understand? No, I can't. I mean, obviously, I'm not an engineer. I can't take apart an inverter and do all that. But I understand that Train or Carrier or whoever is going to stand behind that product. Whereas if we're dumping refrigerant itself is a whole different beast. I mean, it's the one component that's not warranted by any manufacturer. Like you have a compressor change out, you don't get to add refrigerant to your ticket, and it's like, um, what happens if the fear that I was presented with, and maybe it was unjustified fear, was that we add this drop-in replacement refrigerant to the system, and the seals are going to shrink up or blow out or something to that effect because the different oils and mixing all this stuff together. And so I'm like, exactly like you said, I'm like, we can do this for an emergency scenario, but we need to change the system out because this is like back whenever I was younger, I was really big into cars, and I always remember the R12 to 134A, and always hearing the mechanics that were talking about it, talking about Black Death, and that's kind of what I associated with that was, getting this black sludge inside the line sets, and then we're stuck with having to replace line sets if the even if they're inaccessible, and so I'm thinking like worst case scenario in my head every time. And so I really value the fact that you have come to market with an app that says, green light, that's a good system to drop this in and replace this with, uh, or red light, and don't do that. And we were talking beforehand a little bit about it gets better as the pressures go up. So what would be a scenario where you typically would see the red light flash off and say, don't replace that?
Just we're viable in a vast majority of units. The easy ones to kind of stay away from would be like anything that's got multiple metering devices along the line that be, I guess to get a little bit deep, because we're a blend and we have multiple
Right.
constituents, which all replacements and all HVAC moving forward are going to be a form of blend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, we have a different boiling points of each of those consistents, and that creates a glide. And so there are actually like some, I think the AccuControl control systems or things like that, where they tried to mimic that
Yeah.
feature that our chemistry naturally does, and that actually interrupts our process. So things like that, mini splits are a perfect example. But those are mostly by and large newer systems anyway.
Right.
Don't cross them very often. So I mean, yeah, there are there, and that's why they're bright red. And then just to kind of retouch on, we don't look at a conversion as like your just simple. I fixed the part and here's your bill
Yeah.
service. We try to add a new category to that basket. You say you like to work on cars. We call it like a tune-up.
Yeah.
We're gonna holistically replace this, and this, because these are all going to work together. And you touched on seals. For the value of a seal kit, when you've already got a system fully evacuated, how much time are you spending to replace seals and have that peace of mind to know that they're good? And then when you're walking away, you've got everything lining up the right way, and you can show your customer, look at all these increases, and I've done what I said. I've actually tuned up your system, and these are the changes that
Yeah.
have out of that. And um, so it's a whole new basket of either just, instead of just fixing or replacing, it's actually optimizing a system.
So, are you seeing, or do you foresee, or is this even in your scope of conversation with manufacturers? Are we going to see dry systems again?
Oh, I think that's a little bit over my pay grade.
I
Uh,
I I just kind of think that, I mean, I'm obviously just spitballing here, and I'm thinking as a contractor who wants to provide for a client, that, I mean, there was a couple years there where we were, you know, R22 wasn't outrageous yet, but you couldn't buy R22 condensers, but you could buy a dry condenser, and then, throw some R22 in there. And I always thought that that was, decent option, especially for any of our property management clients, or anybody that maybe even the air handler's still under warranty. They changed out the air handler because of a leaking coil, and then they phased out the 22 condensers, and now they're stuck with a new air handler and a bad outdoor unit. And so we were replacing just the condensers, and then they kind of phased away because I don't know if there was a reason they phased away, or if it was just the price of 22 went through the roof, so people just quit buying them. But
Yeah, I mean, I do know that that happens. I can't really predict if it's going to happen on a large scale. I know for a fact, one of my colleagues just, they remodeled their home and couldn't find an old R22 system, or didn't want to buy an old one. So they bought a dry Guardian unit and charged up a Bluon, and his house is great. Um,
good.
so I mean, it was a totally viable option that would work well in. It's just pretty rare at this stage that that's what we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah.
So
I just wonder, you said that this is more efficient than 22. Is that correct?
energy efficient, yes.
Okay.
We get those savings because we operate at lower pressures. So those lower pressures both lower and stabilize the amp draws. So the lower amp draws obviously are going to be your direct energy savings, and then the
Yeah.
more amp draw, we minimize those peaks and valleys. The compressor startups actually reduces vibration, creates a more stable load on the whole system, which typically we're already talking about older equipment. So that's nothing positives on that system all around.
Yeah. And to me, I just think about working. Even currently, we carry 2 jugs of 22 on our vans, but we working on a 22 versus a 410 or a 404 system. It just seems 22 always like that. It just cools better. It almost feels more efficient, even though you have a 10 SEER 22 unit versus a 14 SEER 410A unit. It feels like the 22 unit was more efficient or more comfortable in the house.
Yeah, and not to start, name bashing or anything. Reasons for some of those things, like, direct R22 replacements, a lot of them lose capacity. So you got a tired system that has to work harder to create the same cooling.
Yeah.
And with newer systems, 410, it maybe isn't more environmentally friendly, but you're operating at higher pressures. That honestly, we're seeing a lot more service calls due to leaks, as well as this 410 struggles with high ambient temperature. It struggles to keep up, so they start running more. So yeah, in your perfect test lab chamber, it's going to
Mm.
work great and get those relatively close sears, but real life always seems to present its new challenge.
Yeah, and
Um,
don't let a little bit of dirt get on the coil on that already running
right,
high head pressures.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, and that's in this industry, there are so many variables all the time. You take two same units, and you're going to have a completely different result, even if they're both installed perfectly correctly.
Yes, that's true. Now, in the in a worst case scenario, say we have a leak in a system and we need to perform a leak search. Um, Most of our leak detectors, they're going to be able to pick up BlueOn.
I don't see why not. And
Okay.
dealing with leaks and vapor side leaks, it's the standard EPA rule.
Okay. Yeah, I knew that when we were first going over to 410A from 22, I'm kind of showing my age a little bit in the industry, but when we first went over to the new refrigerant, um, the leak detectors, they wouldn't always go off on the 410A like they would with the 22. And I just remember dealing with that, and it was a pain in the butt.
What we probably see more often is we're not even able to ask that question because whoever we're coming behind, it's not labeled, and we don't know how much was in there in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's usually safer. Let's just walk this back and start from square one, and you know, and then go on from there. So
So with the app, obviously the app was created so that we could, you know, especially in commercial applications, can reach out to you and ask for support whenever replacing R22 with BlueOn. What there's also like it doesn't have to be BlueOn related for the tech support, which is really it's mind-boggling to me because I'm thinking there's a chance you could tie people up. But I understand you're kind of giving back to the industry a little bit. But can you explain to me a little bit about that?
sure, I mean, we look at this whole BlueOn program as for you by you. We have a whole team of guys who have been doing it for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years, and we work with them to be like, what were you missing out there all these years? What was going to make your life better? I mean, the HVAC industry as a whole has a lot of curveballs constantly being thrown at it or back at you. So we kind of committed to let's kind of solve and fill this void of a true tech support line that um, is going to answer you while you're still on the roof, not 3 days later, and or not ask you if you have tried turning it off and back on to see if it fixed the problem. Like, hey man, I'm here. What are you looking at? And yeah, there's an implied time commitment there, but I call them our geek squad, our nerd squad. They love talking about it. They genuinely love talking about it, and that's a huge important piece to everyone here is the
Oh,
passion that we're doing and trying to help out. So whether it's the tech or the counter sales guy or the project sales engineer, wanting to make sure all the ducks are in the right rows and let's get this job going in the right direction. And empowering people to have more options and build business.
cool. Now, is that just an HVAC or is that R2? Is it refrigeration too?
I mean, we prefer mostly HVAC, but we have refrigeration experience, and the way we always work is if one guy worked for longer and something else, like I'll go wake the other Mike up and have him talk to you about refrigeration. It's
Gotcha.
we're upfront, just like the red light, green light program. If I don't know the answer, I'm gonna go find the guy who does
Right.
and
Yeah.
get the answer. So same commitment there.
Yeah. That's really cool. So if you're unsure if there's BlueOn in our area, is there a way for us to search somewhere and find out if BlueOn's there?
There is. So the easiest way to find your local supplier is the BlueOn website, or BlueOn.com. And right up top, there's a buy button, and it's your standard. Type in your zip code and search, and it'll give you a list within 50 miles. Um, if there's not someone who's in a convenient driving distance, there's True Tech Tools.
Okay.
Um,
And they'll ship it.
they'll ship it. Yep, yep.
And you can use Service Biz and get 8% off of certain things.
So
Yeah, those guys, Bill and all of them, Bill Jr. They're really cool guys. I love them.
they really are. Yeah, they've been great to work with this last while. So we're really excited to have them.
Cool. So the app itself has gone through several transitions. What would you say is the last question I really have is what would you say is the biggest changing point and um, uh, update that the app's had over the past, let's call it 6 months?
In the last 6 months, I don't know the computer way to say it, but we made the manuals basically readily available. So we, instead of having to be in good service, the download speed and availability speed, 100 times more uh, available and fast and at your fingertips, and just make it more. That was probably the most functional change that's happened in the last 6 months, and then adding the bidding tool. Um,
Explain that bidding tool real fast.
So the bidding tool on a given unit will immediately pull up how many, a rough estimate of how many hours of labor it's going to take to do a conversion, as well as how many pounds of refrigerant. And if there are any modifications to be made, how many of those parts you're going to need to order, and how to order them. So if you're looking at a smaller unit and it's going to say we've got 7 hours for your average stack to complete, and going to be 15 pounds of refrigerant, and you just apply our fixed price per pound times your labor rate, and you've got a off the hip ballpark number that you can continue the conversation quickly instead of having to call in and I'll get back to you in a week. And
Yeah.
let's increase the speed of moving projects forward, not the standard way of, well, let me go check the book and
Right.
process. No, I got it right here. This is what we're looking at. This is what I'm getting into and we're getting into, and keep going.
Cool deal. I really like the fact that, especially having any of the contractors that may be listening, service business owners that are listening or watching this, we've all experienced, especially after hours. And if I say I'm at the house and somebody calls me about something, and so I just quickly Google trying to get a spreadsheet. I just want schematics on a piece of equipment, and they're like, pay $39, or they give like a pixelated version of it, and then if you want to actually see it, it's like pay this amount, and it's like the first 3 pages of it, like they've done the SEO on it, and it's super irritating. But it's really cool that y'all have those schematics available, readily available,
Yeah,
which is
pretty big deal. It was pretty large commitment to get them all in there, and the sheer amount that they're continuing to add daily. I mean, there's so much equipment out there. We're also adding 410 manuals. As
oh
that,
cool.
that's what people are seeing out there, so they need to have those too. So
Yeah. How many manuals would you guess is in there right now?
30,000.
30,000. Holy cow. Well, that's
Yep.
cool.
So pretty
Yeah.
good. You're gonna find what you're looking for. Yep.
That's awesome. Sweet, man. Well, I appreciate it. I promise this is the last question. Promise. Uh, if if someone's converting something over to BlueOn, is there a sticker or something that we can buy to let other people know that we've converted it? This is how much refrigerant we put into it, or something like that. I'm just thinking.
Every jug comes with a packet of labels.
Okay, cool.
I don't remember if it's 6 or 7, but there's a packet. So if you get multiple units, you've got enough to do one on the compressor, one on the outside, and try and put it in the spot where it's going to last. And they have all the blanks in there to fill out what you did. So
Awesome. Y'all thought of everything. So
Yep. I think there's even a PT chart on the box, so
Oh,
that
that's up.
your
Yeah.
phone's you got that going too.
So and I haven't even looked yet. I said that was the last question. Is it in the Measure Quick app?
Yes,
Okay.
we partnered with Measure Quick. So Jim Bergman is fantastic, genius,
Oh,
um, and he's very well aligned with fine tuning and aligning and tuning up and optimizing a system the right way and knowing that you got it there, and
hmm
then show that to your customer and show the befores and afters. That's a perfect setup for how we would like people to
oh yeah.
be.
Yeah, we do that. We run a report on every job we go. It takes a little bit more time, but to know when you leave the house, or leave the building, that that system is working optimally at that time. The BTUs, the output, and all that stuff. And it takes a lot of guesswork out of it. And that's something that whenever I was up and coming that we didn't have. You're like, well,
Right.
you got a good delta T and your pressures are pretty close. You should be good. you know,
Yeah. I mean, one of my old bosses, I'll never forget. If you got time to do it twice, you got time to do it right the first time.
good
And
point.
I think that was building the wall or something, and it was however off level. And he's like, "We'll take the whole thing down, do it over." Yeah, that sucked. Okay,
hmm
do it right now. So yeah, that little bit of extra time and care and attention makes a big difference. And I think customers actually really appreciate being able to see the difference that's there.
Yeah, I agree. Cool, Mike. I appreciate you taking some time and sharing BlueOn with us. Um, and make sure if you're not following BlueOn on social media, you follow them, connect with them. And then is BlueOn.com the best place to learn more? Obviously, the app. Get the app, download it. And it's not just any of your apps. You have to actually take a quiz, take a test, and do some education. And that's the cool part.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. Everyone seems to learn something. It takes about 20 minutes, a couple videos, and then you get an access code from us. Um, it's pretty painless, but everyone, like I said, everyone seems to learn something. I know I did, and it's Google Play Store and Apple Store. There's links on our website as well, readily available.
Cool, man. I appreciate it, bud.
All right, well, thank you very much. Just glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are listening to this on the podcast, I thank you also for listening to the Service Business Mastery Podcast. It's a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. I hope that we have answered some of the unasked questions or questions you didn't know to ask on today's episode. If you have any other questions, though, by chance, feel free to reach out to me, Tersh at serviceemperor.com, or connect with me on Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever. It's Tersh Blizzard everywhere. But I hope to see, if you're not following BlueOn already, connect with BlueOn. Definitely. The tech support thing is really cool. It blows my mind as someone who manages labor to have some more help and support when it comes to the labor portion of my business. So cool. I appreciate everything, and I appreciate BlueOn again for coming on today's show. And we'll talk again soon. Have a great week.